2010 was one of the most decisive years in my life. It is 10 years ago. A decade has just passed, and normally years fly by, and we are at the advent of a new decade. We're opening up a new decade starting today, and you have absolutely no clue what is awaiting us in the next 10 years. See, it is a different thing to celebrate the new year, but it's also a totally different thing to celebrate a new decade. And so in the podcast today, I want us to start discussing how we can strategically position ourselves to be the best versions of ourselves in this decade. So that in the next 10 years, we can look back and we can say, I did this, I did that, and I did that, and I became more of myself. You want to stay tuned to this. It's going to be a series of messages.
Welcome to the Life Signatures podcast with Lawrence Namale. Lawrence is a life coach, author, and keynote speaker who loves to tackle different topics on purpose, productivity, and resilience. His mission in life is to awaken all your boundless possibilities available in you. Life Signatures podcast is dedicated to bring to reality every single person who knows that deep down in their gut, there's got to be more to life than this. And now, here is your host, Lawrence Namale.
Well, hello and welcome to a very brand new decade. This is 2020. Who would have thought that you and I will be alive at such a time as this in this dispensation? And let me tell you this, that I believe that we are on the cusp of our own personal revolutions. With the advent of this new decade, if we can open our eyes and if we can determine ourselves to go out there and do something. Now, I understand that every time the new year begins, there are very many people who are coming with different messages. They will tell you, this is the year of that, this is the year of this, and so on. In fact, I have done an episode on this phenomenon. It is found on episode number 25, where I tell you to ignore your average pastor's New Year's message. Why? Because for the most part, it's a generic message that says this year is the year of breakthrough, this year is the year of favor, this year is the year of this, and this year is the year of that. But mostly the year is not on its own. The year is actually activated by you and I and our involvement in life. In other words, the turnout of the decade is going to be proportional to how active we were, how intentional we were, how directional we were, how hard-working we were with our lives. It is not going to be dependent upon a pronunciation by a man of God, which has its place, by the way. It's not going to be predicated by what someone else in spiritual authority says. Now, let me say this, because it's very controversial. Yes, there is a part that I can decree and I can declare something about your life, about my life in the new decade. But if I am not going to do my part, if you are not going to do your part, then whatever declaration, it can even be God himself. And by the way, God does declare. God does declare and God does decree things. God calls people blessed. God says, I've given people the power to acquire wealth. But you see, that is a declaration that has to be acted upon by you and I. So if we are not going to act upon that declaration, whether it's by God, whether it's by his son, whether it's by the Spirit of the living God, whether it's by a man of God, whether it's by your father, your mother, whether it's by your boss, if we are not going to act upon it, then we are going to miss out on it. So what am I communicating? I'm communicating and I'm saying that this year and this decade, the turnout of this year and the turnout of this decade is, for the most part, dependent upon us. We are the ground zero of the revolution of our decade. We are the nucleus, the engine that sets everything in motion and sets everything apart. If we wanted to achieve things, it would be largely because of us and not because of God. I know that is controversial. Why am I saying that is controversial? Because, listen, doesn't God want everyone to be successful? Doesn't God want everyone to be saved, delivered, set free? Doesn't God want everyone to walk as if they own the universe? He does. But is that what is happening? No. Why? Because there is God's part, and then there is my part, there is your part, and then there is His part. We've got to complement each other in this. And so I am going to be sharing on how to strategically position ourselves for the new decade or for the new year so that we can get the maximum output out of it. And today I want to give us one simple thing that we can be able to do. I know when I speak to people, I've spoken to some people, and some people have told me, I have already set my goals. Some people have said, I am not going to set goals, I'm just going to look for happiness, and so on and so forth. See, we need not to rush through this. We need to stay. The first thing that we need to do is to stay calm and be reflective. And see what we have been living, how our lives that we've been leading have been like. And I know at some point in time there are very many people who are listening, or maybe who might be listening to me at some moment in time, and they are quite disillusioned by life, as in there is nothing great to look forward to. They look ahead and the future seems absolutely bleak. They are desperate, they are optionless, they are hopeless. They have no this and they don't have this and they don't have that. They don't have a job, they don't have something that they can be able to work on. I'm telling you, it is an impossibility that you're facing today, seemingly. But the thing is that if we can stop all the traffic and we can consider it, that there is a point for being alive today, there is a reason for being existing today, and start asking the questions, the right questions. I know I'm going out of myself already, but if we start asking the right questions out of this life, then chances are that we're going to start getting the answers. 10 years ago, I started asking myself questions. In fact, it was a culmination of maybe years of asking myself questions upon questions about my life. See, life has answers, and it is important to ask questions. You see, the worst we can do, it is to stay mum, to stay quiet, especially when we're facing impossibilities, we're going through difficulty, we're going through hopelessness, we're going through dejection, we're going through despondency. Things that we expected to come did not come, and life is there, and we are quiet. We are supposed to start asking questions. And so I started asking questions, and in 2010 it culminated in me deciding and having this serendipitous moment when I knew why I was alive, why I was brought to the face of the earth. And I am asking you, this is an advent of a new decade. It's an advent of a new year. Today is a new year. It's an advent of a new year, and you're going to be listening to very many people, very many messages of people who are telling you what to do, what not to do, and so on. But you see, like I've said, you are the ground zero of the personal revolution in your life. And it is important to have input from very many people, but at the end of the day, the ultimate decisions are going to be made by you and by I. See, I talked about decisions in the past several episodes, and you can go back and review them. But it is going to be you in the driver's seat. I know it sounds like you're edging God out when I say that it's you on the driver's seat, because for the most part we're waiting on God, but God is always waiting on us. See, there are boundless possibilities that do exist around us. There are possibilities, there is potential that exists around us, even when we are facing a bleak moment, even when we are despondent, even when we are dejected, even when we are confused, even when we are feeling absolutely hopeless. there are boundless possibilities that are lying, awaiting to be realized in us. And I want you to realize that the advent of the new year, it is a psychological new boost. You can be living a life that is honestly in a lull. Nothing is going on. Nothing positive is coming out of it. But at the advent of a new year, it is an opportunity for you to take that moment, that opportunity. Is like a door. Even in the spiritual realms, it is like a door that we have entered. We have entered a new dispensation. There's a scripture that says the old has gone and the new has come. And in this sense, it is true. The old is departed. The new has come. And so we need to enter the new with a new thinking, a new dispensation, a new mindset. And how are we going to do this? I believe the very first thing that you and I need to do, my friend, it is to be reflective. Someone say that a life not reviewed is not worth living. I know people will be in a hurry to set goals and to set objectives and to set milestones and do every single thing that they want. But let me tell you this, please do not be in a hurry in 2020 to decide how things are going to be. One of the biggest quotes, in fact, I've quoted this man over and over again. He says this, Abraham Lincoln said, if I'm given 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'll probably spend 4 hours sharpening my axe. And so I'm telling you this, do not rush into setting the kind of goals that you want. Yes, they could be going on in your mind and so on and so forth. Let them float around in your mind, but do not as yet put pen to paper and decide very fast what you want to do. I'm inviting you first of all to be reflective. You know why I'm discouraging you from being in a hurry to set goals? Because it is so easy to become soulish. It is so easy to become fleshy. It is so easy to become what Christians call carnal. And that's a very valid point. In other words, it's very easy for you to respond to the pressing things of the now. On the immediate, I need to make money, I need to pay rent, I need to take my kids to school, I need to take my wife. I mean, it is so easy to depend on these things to have a reactionary mode. When you are setting goals, you don't need to be reactive, you need to be proactive, you need to be visionary. And you cannot be visionary when you're in a hurry. Unless, of course, you've been spending the past 1 month thinking about the next decade, thinking about the next year. I'm inviting you today. I don't know who you are and I don't know what you're going through. I'm inviting you today. I'm going to lead you in a process of deciding how your next 10 years are going to be, starting today. But the very first thing that I'm asking you to do today is to stop all the traffic and start being reflective. To be reflective means to stop the traffic and start taking a toll of what it is that you have done, what it is that you have accomplished, what it is that you have failed to do, what it is that you had as a dream and has not yet come to pass. Have you been living the best life ever? Have you been living the best that you were supposed to be living in the first place? Those are reflective moments. And you put yourself on in the dock and you're being questioned and you're being bombarded. It is not easy. But you see, that is where you get action points from. It is so easy to start saying, oh, I want to make money, I want to do this, I want to do this, but not to be reflective. If we are not reflective, it is very easy to become sidetracked from life. And we start following simple reactionary goals because we are responding to pressing needs at the moment. That's why I am insisting that the very first thing that you and I need to do is to be reflective. I need you to do the following. First, you cannot just enter a new decade and a new year with an empty head, nothing on your hands and so on. I'm asking you to make your head activated, and I'm going to show you how that's done. But I'm asking you also to take a pen and a paper. In fact, you should have your notebook for the decade. Take a pen and a paper and start being reflective. And I'm going to ask you to do the following things before you can make a decision to start your new year. Number one, I need you to gather as much information as possible. I need you to be meditative. I need you to be reflective, and you're going to get information both from inside of you and also from outside of you. From outside of you, it's easy. Today, if you go to Google and you talk about goal setting, you're going to get millions upon millions of videos, audios, podcasts, articles, and so on. Discussions, masterminds. There are very many things. And I'm asking you to do exactly that. Follow someone who is teaching about goal setting. Follow someone like Brian Tracy, someone like Darren Hardy, someone like Billy Cox. Follow some of these people, someone like Simon Sinek, who are talking about goal setting from a wholesome perspective, and listen to their teaching so that you can get some kind of external perspective out of it. So you can watch them, you can listen to them, you can read them, and you can do exercises about them. I'm asking you not to decide as yet, but gather information externally. Secondly, remember you have your notebook for the decade and you are ready to record as many things as possible in there. The second thing that you need to do is to put yourself in the dock. Where you're going to get information from is not from external, but from internal. Not externally only, but also internal. In other words, you're going to question yourself, and I'm going to give you some questions that you can be able to use, and so that you can be able to get some information, some insight that you can act upon. Question number 1. List the 10 biggest achievements of your past decade. From 2010 to 2020, if you look back, what are the 10 biggest achievements? Question number 2. If you look back in the past decade, what are those 3 things that you are most proud of? Proud of. Pride is the emotion that I'm looking for. And then number 3. If you look at the past 10 years, what are the 3 things that you have done differently and have made you improve greatly? And then number 4, what are the greatest lessons in the past 10 years? Let me help you to review your life again. The first thing that you need to ask yourself is this: what are the 10 major achievements of my past 10 years? The second question is this: what are the 3 things you are most proud of over the past 10 years? And then number 3, how different and how improved have you been in the past 10 years? And then number 4, what are the greatest lessons that you've learned in the past 10 years? Number 5, what are the 3 greatest influences in your life over the past 10 years? Now listen to me very carefully. This is a review. If you sit down and you write those questions in your notebook and you find it absolutely difficult to come up with answers to those questions, guess what? It tells you that probably you were not as intentional as you were supposed to have been in the past 10 years, which is a good thing. Because once you realize that you have not been intentional, it pricks your heart, and now you have an action point. That's why we've got to be reflective. Now you have an action point, you have something to act upon. For example, if you ask yourself, what are the 10 biggest achievements in my life over the past decade, and you can't find 5 or 3, then it tells you that this is a moment, this is the hour for you to start thinking about the next 10 years with the 10 big things that you're going to accomplish. I hope you get my drift. That's why it's important for us not just to rush through life just like that. I mean, rush through the year. You cannot tell me you've already decided how your 2020 is going to be like in the past 1 hour. You need to take some days and really think. You see, the reason as to why we are taking some time to reflect is so that you can go to the depth. See, we need to unearth the reason behind our activities. Why are we doing these activities? Why are you setting that goal? Why do you want that money at the end of every month? Or why do you want that money at the end of the year? There's got to be a reason behind it. And we only come to the reason behind it when we do review. See, we've got to plan, yes. We've got to execute, yes. But we must review. See, the past several years you've been planning and you've been doing. And I'm inviting you at the beginning of 2020 to sit back and plan and review. And review what your year is going to look like before you can launch deep. I'm going to come back tomorrow with another episode on this one because we are launching and seeing how strategic we can be with our 2020 and beyond. The next 10 years should be a revolutionary decade for us. And it can only be that way if we take this kind of outlook in life. So thank you for listening and stay tuned. A special shout out to my mentor Jeffrey Howard of Visionary Business University, found at mastermindmentor.com, who has graciously provided me with the soundtrack and the introductory track to this podcast. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for listening to Life Signatures Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to Life Signatures Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or visit our website at lifesignatures.libsyn.com. Life Signatures Radio, fresh, clean, and inspiring.